Tzadik Ches Amid Beis. The Mishnah, Oymid Adam. Sagt the Mishnah. Got it? Tzadik Ches Amid Beis. Oymid Adam b'Reshus HaYachid. A person could be standing in the Reshus HaYachid. For example, you're on the porch in your house. Umetaltel b'Reshus HaRabim. And you stick your hand into the Reshus HaRabim and you can move something in the Reshus HaRabim. Or you're standing b'Reshus HaRabim, umetaltel b'Reshus HaYachid. And you stick your hand into Reshus HaYachid and you move something in the Reshus HaYachid. If you're moving something in the Reshus HaRabim, so you could move it a little bit, but not out of Dal Damas. What's the chiddush of this Mishnah? That we're not going to be geyser, that since your body is in one Reshus and you're sticking your hand into another Reshus, that you might forget and bring it in, or bring it out. So that we're not geyser for that. The person should not stand in the Reshus HaYachid, v'yashtin b'Reshus HaRabim, and urinate into the Reshus HaRabim. That's the ism in Atayra. You're making an akira. It's being what's going out is being elevated or uprooted. That is from the Reshus HaYachid and going into the Reshus HaRabim, or the opposite. Reshus HaRabim v'yashtim b'Reshus HaYachid, standing in the Reshus HaRabim and he urinates into the Reshus HaYachid. V'chein lo yaruk. The same is also regarding spitting. Rabbi Yehuda says, Af mishenitlash roikei b'fiv. If a person has saliva in his mouth, and that saliva is nitlash roike b'fiv, meaning it sort of collects in his mouth. Okay, so now it's not anymore part of his body. Obviously, any fluids that's in your body is part of your body. You're not carrying. But if you have saliva that collects in your mouth and you want to spit it out, it's already not part of your body anymore. So then, lo yahalach arba ames at sheyarik. You can't walk 4 ames until you spit it out. Or the same would be, you can't walk in from Reshus HaRabim to Reshus HaYachid, or Reshus HaYachid to Reshus HaRabim, if you have the saliva that collected in your mouth. Zok the Gemara, Masni la Rav Chinena bar Shalmiya lechiyah barav kamei derav. What did it say in the Mishnah? Lo yamoid. So he actually learned opposite of what it said in our Mishnah. In our Mishnah it said, Oymid Adam, that you could stand in the Reshus HaYachid and move something in the Reshus HaRabim, and the same the opposite. But he learned, no, Lo yamed Adam b'Reshus HaYachid v'yitalta b'Reshus HaRabim. Do not stand in the Reshus HaYachid and stick your hand out and move something in the Reshus HaRabim. Because we're geyser. We're afraid that if he does that, he might bring it into Reshus HaYachid. Amalei, so he said to him, Shafkis Rabbanon v'avdis Rab Meir. Are you leaving the gersa that we have, which is according to the Rabbanon's opinion, and you're paskening like Rab Meir? What's Rab Meir? So as Rashi says, we're going to have in 2 daf from now, and daf Kuf Aleph, there's a clear Mishnah where Rab Meir disagrees with our Mishnah. Rab Meir there says that a person is not allowed to stick out his hand. The Gemara there is talking about a person standing in the Reshus HaYachid and he sticks out his hand to open a doorway that's out in the Reshus HaRabim, or the opposite, he's standing in the Reshus HaRabim and he sticks his hand in to open a door in the Reshus HaYachid. So Rab Meir clearly holds that you're not allowed to stand in one Reshus and do something in another Reshus. So over here, you're saying that our Mishnah also is saying this, Lo Yamed Adam. So you're saying that our Mishnah follows the opinion of Rab Meir, and not like the Rabbanan that disagree with Rab Meir. So the Gemara says, yeah, who's Savar? So he held, Rav Chinena bar Shalmiya held, Midir Sefer Rab Meir, since later in the next Mishnah, or in a few Mishnahs from now, and Daf Kuf Aleph, that Mishnah says Rab Meir's opinion that you're not allowed. So Reishanami Rab Meir. Over here, this Mishnah as well follows Rab Meir that says it's not allowed. But the Gemara concludes, V'loihi, it's not true. Sefer Rab Meir, there's a Mishnah later which is Rab Meir, but V'reisha Rabbanan, our Mishnah is Rabbanan, and we paskin like our Mishnah, like the Rabbanan that say that we're not geyser if a person is going to stand in one Reshus and move something in another Reshus, we're not afraid that he might come to bring it in. What did it say in the Mishnah? That if you're moving something in the Reshus HaRabim, so you're standing, let's say, on a porch, and you stick your body out into the Reshus HaRabim and move something, but you shouldn't move it out of 4 amas. So what you see from here is that if you would move it, l'chayri, you can be medayik from the Mishnah. If you did move it out of the Dalad Amas in the Reshus HaRabim, chayev chatas, you'd be chayev chatas. So should we say, what it says over here would be a raya to what Rava said that we learned yesterday. What did Rava say? If you move an object in the Reshus HaRabim from the beginning of 4 to the end of 4 amas, but while you were moving it, you elevated it above 10 tvachim. Chayev, you're chayev, as long as you lifted it up from in the Rishus Harabim, and you placed it down in the Rishus Harabim, the fact that while you were moving it, it was above 10 Tvachim doesn't matter. So the Gemara here is teaching that probably in the Mishnah it also includes such a case. This person is sticking his head out from the Rishus HaYachid. Where is he in the Rishus HaYachid? He's probably on a rooftop or on a porch, and he's above 10 Tvachim. And he sticks his hand out in the Rishus Harabim and he moves something from one place to another. So we assume that when he moved it, he lifted it up higher than 10 Tfachim and placed it down, even though in between it was higher than 10 Tfachim, he would be chayiv. And says the Gemara, no, from the Mishnah it's no raya. Mikataniim hoitzi chayiv chatas. Does it say in the Mishnah, if he did take it out 4 Tfachim, he's chayiv chatas? Dilme, maybe what the Mishnah means to say is, im hoitzi, if he took it out of the 4 amis, pater avolaser. Then he's going to be potter because he was carrying it above 10 Tvachim, but it's going to be aser. Maybe that's what you could be medayik from the Mishnah. If you don't move it 4 amas, it's allowed, but if you do move it 4 amas, it's potter aval aser, but not that yechayiv minatayre. Ikkedamri, others taka said the opposite. Ha hoitzi potter aval aser. It could be medayik from the Mishnah that if you did carry it 4 amas, it's potter aval aser. Why? Because what does it say in the Mishnah? Ubulvat shaloi yoitzi chutz ma'arba amas. The Mishnah did not say that if you will moitzi 4 amas, you chayiv. If you chayiv min atayra, the Mishnah should have said chayiv. So therefore, the Gemara is medayik. It means that it's aser min adrabanan, but not min atayra. Leime to heavy to yufta the Rava. So this would refute Rava's opinion. Rava says that if you moved it and it was above 10 tfachim, you'd be chayiv min atayra. And so the Gemara, it's no raya from a Mishnah. Mi katani hoitzi potter aval aser. Does it say in our Mishnah that you potter, but it's aser mit rabbanan? Dilme im hoitzi chayiv chatas. Maybe our Mishnah means to say that you would be chayiv chatas, even though the Mishnah didn't spell it out that way. But maybe that's the pshat in the Mishnah, that you would be chayiv chatas. So there's no raya from our Mishnah to what Rava spoke about. Sagt the Gemara, lo yamed adam b'rishus hayachid v'chulu. So it said in our Mishnah that if a person is standing in the Rishus HaYachid, he shouldn't urinate into the Rishus HaRabim, or the opposite. Amar Rav Yosef says, Rav Yosef, Hishtin v'rak, if a person is in the Rishus HaYachid, and he urinates or spits into the Rishus HaRabim, chayev chatos. He's going to be chayev chatos. There's an akira, and there's a hanocha. The akira from his body, and a hanocha in the Rishus HaRabim. So you're chayev chatos. Frag the Gemara, and this is a sugya that was in the beginning of Masechta Shabbos. V'habe'inon akire v'hanocha malgabe mokim dalid v'leke. One of the rules about the malacha v'tzah is that you have to uproot it from a mokim choshev, from a significant place where the object was there permanently. So it has to be a mokim dalid, a place that's at least 4 by 4 tfachim. And you don't have that space of 4 by 4 tfachim. The roik or the when a person urinates, it's not coming from a place that's 4 by 4 tfachim. And says the Gemara, machshavtoi mishavyele mokim. The person's machshav, because he needs this and he has a noah from this, that itself gives it a significance that the place where it was has a chshivus, and therefore you're over on the malacha. And the Gemara brings in a rayat to this. The ilay taimachi, if you're not going to say that a person's machshava when you do something and you need that place to be there, so it gives it a significance. So ha dama rava zorak v'noch b'fia kelev. You throw something, you want to feed a dog, and you throw food, and it lands in the mouth of the dog, which is not 4 by 4 tefachim wide. Or b'fia kifshon, or you throw something and it lands in a fire. Chayiv chatas. You chayiv chatas because you want it to be there. It's important to you. As long as you have hana from it. Taisus adds over here. The pshat of machshavta means that you have hana from this. Right? Nana Taisus says. So then, that itself is significant and it's a malacha. So in this case as well, when it lands in the mouth of the dog, there's no dalit. Your machshave gives it the significance that you want it. The same is with our Mishnah. When a person is urinating or spitting, the machshav of the person, the hana of the person, gives it the chshivus of the place, and it's a malacha. Rav asked a shaila, if the person's body is in the Rishus HaYachid, upi ama b'Rishus HaRabim, and the Eiver is in the Rishus HaRabim. So is he going to be over the malacha or not? Mahu. Basar akira azlinan. Do we say that we follow the original source of where it was uprooted from, the urine, which is in the body of the person, is in the Rishus HaYachid? So he's going to be over the malacha. Or basi yitzi azlinan. Or we follow when it departed from the body and the Eiver of the person is in the Rishus HaRabim, so he's not going to be over the malacha. Teiko. The Gemara doesn't answer this, and we pass in Lakula on this Indian. The next thing in the Mishnah, V'chein le'yarek Rabbi Yehuda imer chulos. What did it say in the Mishnah? That when a person has saliva in his mouth, you have spittle, saliva in your mouth, so usually it's part of your body. You're not carrying anything. But if you have saliva that collected in your mouth, that you're not going to keep it in your body, you're going to spit it out. So once it's collected in your mouth, so then you have to spit it out. That's like you're carrying fluid in your mouth. Is this even when the saliva collected in your mouth and you didn't turn it over? Meaning it's not something which a person is mamish like swishing around in his mouth, that it's mamish a separate thing, that he wants to get rid of it. He's just waiting for the opportunity to spit it out. In other words, the Gemara here is saying that you have, usually a person has liquid in his mouth, saliva in your mouth. That's obviously part of your body. Then you have, once it collects in your mouth, then it's something that is not necessarily part of your body. And then you have even more hafichpa, something that a person is swishing around in his mouth and he mamish wants to spit it out already. So in our Mishnah, it's mashma, the lashon of our Mishnah was nitlash, that it collected in your mouth. It doesn't say that he was hafichba, that he already swished it around in his mouth. So the Gemara brings in another place where Rabbi Yehuda talks about this subject, and there Rabbi Yehuda says it's not enough that it collected in your mouth. It has to also be something that you're mamish turning around in your mouth. Swirl around your mouth. That's the right word? Okay, shkayach. But Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, a person is eating a fig, which is truma. That's Rashi's pshat, I think, over here. Rashi says it's truma. And it's his hands, he didn't wash on Natilas Yadayim, so his hands are, anytime you don't wash your hands, so it's sheni l'tumah. V'hichnis yadeh l'toich piv. Now he put his hands, that is, into his mouth. Now what's the halacha? We learned many, many times when you get to foods that you eat, if it didn't come in contact with any liquid, it's not susceptible to tumah. So this fig was not wet at all, so it was not susceptible to any tumah. But now he put it into his mouth. The question is whether the moisture in his mouth makes it susceptible to tumah. And if it does, so now this person didn't wash his hands on Natilas Yadayim, and he stuck his hand into his mouth, little tziror, wanted to take out some pebble, something that was in his mouth, so he stuck his hands, which are tamei, into his mouth, and this food, this truma, is in his mouth. So does he become tamei now? The question is, do I say that the liquid of his mouth makes the fig in his mouth susceptible to tumah, and now his hands are metamit? Rab Meir metamit. Rab Meir says yes, it becomes tamei. Rab Yosi metai. Rab Yosi says no, the saliva, the liquid in your mouth does not make it susceptible to tumah. Huh? Sheva mashkin? It's water, sort of. I mean, I don't know. It's yeah. So the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Imer, and this is what's negated to our Mishnah here. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. Hipich ba tamei, lo hipich ba tahir. If the saliva in your mouth that you don't want to keep in your mouth anymore, you were swirling it around, so it's like considered to be separated from your body, so then that saliva will make it susceptible to tumah. But if not, then it's just part of your body and it doesn't make it susceptible to tumah. So what do we see over here? What does Rabbi Yehuda say? When is the saliva in a person's mouth considered to be separated? Not only when it collected in your mouth. It has to be that he swirled it around in his mouth. Then it makes the fig tameh. So why don't we say the same thing over here, beneged to the saliva in your mouth when it comes to carrying dal damas? Over here it says that mishanitlash, as long as it was collected in your mouth, then it's considered to be carrying. Rabbi Yochanan muchlefes hashita. Rabbi Yochanan says that muchlefes hashita, Rashi says, the pshat here is that Rabbi Yehuda changed his opinion. Muchlefes means he switched his opinion. Shlakish Amar, Shlakish says, loilam loy tachlef. It's not necessarily to say that he changed his opinion. Change his
opinion, or we have to change?
No. I'm saying Rashi's pshat. If you look in Rashi, Mechlefes Hashita, Hechlef Rab Yehuda Shitase v'yatza himena. Not sure. There's other Rishonim maybe that learn that you can switch the opinions here. But that's usually the taich. Here the pshat is that he changed his opinion. You don't have to say that Rabbi Yehuda changed his opinion. In our Mishnah, when it says that as long as it collected in his mouth, even before he swirled it around in his mouth, it's separate. Over here we're talking about bekichai. We're not talking about saliva. We're talking about phlegm. It's a different story. A person coughs up phlegm, that's for sure not considered to be part of his body anymore. Even if he's not swirling it around, he doesn't want it in his body. Okay, so it's two different things, the saliva and the phlegm. Fragt the Gemara, but Vatanya in a Braisa it says, Rabbi Yehuda Imer kichoi v'nitlash, that the phlegm that was nitlash from his body, in other words, it collected in his mouth, My love, roik v'nitlash, don't you think that we could compare and say that just like kichoy, phlegm that's nitlash in his mouth, that he doesn't want it in his body, the same thing would also be roik v'nitlash. Shouldn't we compare them? And the Mefarshim say the reason why we would think to compare them is because when the Braisa says kichoy v'nitlash, so why would it be necessary to add v'nitlash? Phlegm is always something which is automatically collected as separately. A person coughs up phlegm. Saliva is something that collects in your mouth and it becomes separate. But by kicha, it's obvious. You don't even have to add the word v'nitlash. From the fact that the Braisa adds the word v'nitlash, you would say that l'chayre, it means to include also that when the same thing happens with spit in your mouth, that if it becomes collected, so it should also be already also to carry it. So the Gemara loy kicha v'nitlash. The Braisa only mentioned phlegm. Only phlegm do I say, even before you swirl it around in your mouth, it's considered to be separate from your body. But now the Gemara brings another Braisa where it clearly says both together. V'atanya Rab Yudah says kicha shenitlash v'chein roikay shenitlash. Whether it's phlegm, whether it's saliva that's already collected in your mouth, lo yahalach dal damas at sheyorik. Do not walk 4 ames unless you spit it out. So here it clearly says that phlegm and saliva is the same thing. So we're going to have to say, like we said before, that Rabbi Yehuda switched his opinion. The Gemara concludes this inyan. Omerei shlokish, kiach b'fnei rabbi, a person coughs up phlegm and he's in front of his teacher, chayiv misa. Shenemar kol misanai oavu moves. What's the pshat of this pasuk? Al tikri lemisanai ela lemasniyai. A person that does something that's repulsive in front of his teacher and he causes people to hate the being in the presence of the teacher to learn Torah, so he's chayiv moves. Frek the Gemara, but v'hamenes anis. What are we talking about here? A person that coughs up phlegm. So it's not his fault at all. It's an oinus. Answers the Gemara, no. I don't mean he coughed up phlegm. Kiach v'rak kamrin on. We're talking about a person that coughed up phlegm and he spit it out in front of his teacher. That's something that's repulsive in chayiv misa. Sagt the Mishnah, lo yamoid adam b'reshus hayachid. A person should not stand in the reshus hayachid. V'yishte b'reshus harabim, and drink from the reshus harabim. Or stand in the reshus harabim, v'yishte b'reshus hayachid, and drink in the reshus hayachid. Ela imkain hichnis roishay v'rubay lamakim shushaisa. Unless most of your body is in that property, in that place, whether the reshus hayachid or the reshus harabim, that you're drinking from. Otherwise, there's a gzeira. Rashi says the gzeira is that the person might bring the pail that he's drinking from and carry it into the reshus hayachid or carry it out. So only if most of your body is there, then you're allowed. V'chein begas, a similar thing applies also if you're drinking from wine from a wine press. And the Gemara will explain what the chiddush about a wine press is. Okay, so now just to clarify that in this case it's only a gzeira midrabanan, but there's no ism in atayra. Even though l'chayra he's being oiker, he's taking the water from the reshus harabim and bringing it and drinking it into his body, which is standing in the reshus hayachid. So Rashi explains in the Gemara that no. The water actually already is, the hanacha of the water takes place in his mouth, as soon as it comes into his mouth. So as soon as he drinks and his mouth is sticking out under the reshus harabim, the hanacha takes place right there in his mouth. The fact that later it goes down into his body, that's not the hanacha, then it just flows down into his body. So the akira and the hanacha are both in the reshus harabim.
It says, reshus harabim v'yishte b'reshus hayachid. So
yeah.
That his head is stuck out into the
reshus harabim. Yes, correct. Yeah. So the Gemara, Reisha Rabbanon. Now the Reisha, the Mishnah that we just learned before, that said that a person could stand in the reshus hayachid and do something in the reshus harabim, and we're not afraid that he's going to bring it in. The previous Mishnah, you're allowed to do that. And V'Seifa, the next Mishnah right over here, Rab Meir. We're following Rab Meir's opinion, as the Gemara mentioned before. There's going to be a Mishnah later that Rab Meir says that he's concerned of a person doing something while he's standing in one reshus and doing something in another reshus. That's what we're concerned about over here. That he's going to bring in the pail of water. But Rav Yosef, in this case, everybody would agree that there's a gzeira. Why? Here we're talking about water that is something that a person needs. Water is something that a person will carry in. Or some Mefarshim actually say it's 2 days. I think the Rambam is one that says that chafetz natzrichin means we're talking about a kind of a cup or pail that is a nice pail that a person would want to use to take into his house. If you have a pail that's some earthenware that a person wouldn't take b'chlal, there's no such gzeira. If it's something which is beautiful that he would love to have in his house, then everybody would agree that we're chayshish that he might carry it in. The question was asked, Carmelis mai. Do we make the same gzeira regarding a Carmelis? If a person is standing in a Carmelis, sticking his head into the Rishus HaRabim. So the whole Isser to carry from Rishus HaRabim to a Carmelis is midrabanan. Are we chayshish the same thing that he might carry from the Rishus HaRabim into a Carmelis? Amar Abaye. Abaye says, yeah, the same gzeira applies. Amar Rava says, no, he gufik gzeira v'ana nekim v'nigzek gzeira l'gzeira. The whole inyan of not carrying from Rosh Hashanah to a Carmelis is a gzeira. And now you're going to say that he can't stand in the Carmelis and drink from the Rosh Hashanah and will make an additional gzeira on top of the first gzeira. We have a klal. We never make a gzeira to a gzeira. But Abaye holds no. Abaye holds there is a gzeira here. Amma Abaye minam minallah. From where do I know that this gzeira applies even to a Carmelis? Diktani, so Abaye says, this is the pshat of the seif of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, v'chein begas. That the same gzeira that applies from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, the same applies to a wine press. So Rashi explains, what did the Mishnah mean to add when it said a wine press? What was the chiddush? It's the same thing. A wine press presumably is a Rosh Hashanah. So you're going from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, the same thing. Elamai will have to say, Abaye said, gas, this wine press was a Carmelis. It was an open area that was not 10 tvachim high, and therefore it's from a Carmelis to a Rosh Hashanah. And the Mishnah says, v'chein begas, the same gzeira applies to a wine press. That's the way Abaye understood our Mishnah. Rava says, no. Chein begas is talking about a completely different inyan. Le'inyan meiser, that's talking about meiser. The chein amar av sheishes, v'chein begas, le'inyan meiser. Over there it's talking about meiser. Now, what's the halacha of meiser that this would be relevant for? So the Gemara brings here the Mishnah that it says regarding meiseris. The Tnan that says in the Mishnah. So, of course, when it comes to maisris, you have to give maiser. Before you drink anything for yourself, you have to give maisris. But here's the thing. If you're drinking in the wine press temporarily, so then, b'derech arai, you're allowed to drink before you take the maiser. So it says in the Mishnah there, shaisin alagas. If you're in a wine press and you're pressing the wine and you want to taste it, you want to drink a little bit. So you're allowed to drink in the wine press, bein b'chamin. Whether you're diluting the wine, those times they would have to always dilute the wine. Whether you're diluting the wine with hot water, bein b'tzainen, whether you're diluting it with cold water, it doesn't make any difference. If you're still in the wine press, you didn't step out, it's considered to be that you're drinking temporarily. So you can drink or potter, and you potter from giving the ma'aser before this. Divrei Rab Meir. Rab Eliezer bar Tzadok mechayev. Rab Eliezer says no. You can drink the wine as long as you didn't dilute it. Once you're diluting it, that's not considered to be anymore that you're drinking it temporarily. You're not stam tasting, you're diluting it. Then it's not allowed. You're going to have to give ma'aser before. Chachamim ma'imrim, the Chachamim say, alachamin chayiv, it depends. If you diluted it with hot water, so then warm water, so then you're going to be chayiv to give ma'aser before. Valatzainin, if you diluted it with cold water, potter, then you're going to be potter. What's the difference? Says the Mishnah there, mipnei shemachzir es hameiser. When you diluted it with warm water, if there's any leftovers in your cup, you're not pouring it back into the wine in the wine press. It's already hot, you're not pouring it back in. If you diluted it with cold water, it's temporary, because if you don't want it, the leftovers you pour back. So then you don't have to give ma'aser. So Rashi explains that over here, b'negei to our Mishnah, when it said v'chein begas, we're talking about a similar inyan that we spoke about b'negei to the Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah. Because this whole halacha is only when you're inside the wine press are you allowed to drink temporarily. According to Rab Meir, as long as you're inside the wine press, you're allowed to drink temporarily. So what the Mishnah here is saying is, how about a person that's standing outside and he's sticking his head into the wine press? How about a person that's standing inside and he's sticking his head out? As long as most of your body is in the wine press, you're allowed to drink in the wine press. That's considered to be drinking temporarily. That's the pshat of here, what the Mishnah was saying it for. So the Mishnah, koilet adam mina maschila lemata me'asar tvachim. A person can catch water in a vessel from a maschila, from a gutter that's running beside the roof. So take a look in the picture. You'll see over here the gutter, the way they built it in those times. So they had a flat roof. Rashi explains this inyan. It's in picture Tov Kuf Ayin Zayin, page Ayin Tes. So they have a flat roof, but they would put some cement on the roof that it should be a bit slanty, so that and then they made holes in the roof, and the water would flow out from the roof onto a gutter that would flow down into the Rishus HaRabim. So this gutter is right near the roof itself. And as the Gemara will explain, the gutter runs within 3 tfachim to the roof itself. So just like the roof itself is a Rishus HaYachid, the gutter, even if theoretically the gutter is not 10 tfachim high, but because it's lavud, it's within 3 tfachim of the roof itself, it's a Rishus HaYachid. So now, this person is standing in the Rishus HaRabim. If he would lift up his vessel and draw directly from the water of the gutter where it is on the top, and then bring it down into the Rishus HaRabim. So he's taking water from a Rishus HaYachid into a Rishus HaRabim. So therefore, what does the Mishnah say? He can catch the water from the gutter, but only when he's holding his vessel below 10 Tfachim, in the Rishus HaRabim. So once that water already drops that low, the water is in the Rishus HaRabim, and then he catches it in his keli, he's not taking any water from a Rishus HaYachid to a Rishus HaRabim. Okay, that's regarding a gutter. Matam Yutfachim, so it has to be below 10 Tfachim. Uminat Sinner, but from a pipe that the water flows out from. So that's the next picture that you have here, that it's not just a gutter, but there's also a pipe that comes down into the Rishus HaRabim. Mikol Makaim Shaisa. He can drink directly from the pipe itself. He can put his keli or even put his mouth and drink directly from his hands or from his mouth, directly from the pipe itself, because it comes down lower. It anyways comes down lower. It's not near the roof. The problem with the gutter is that it's on the top, right near the roof, so it's part of the Rishus HaYachid. This comes down much lower, further away from the roof, so you can drink directly from this pipe. So the Gemara koilet in. So the first case in the Mishnah, you're allowed to catch the water from the gutter when you're lower down. Avol mitzaref loy. But you're not allowed to lift up your keli all the way to the top, to the gutter itself, which is near the roof. My time, what's the reason? We're talking over here about the gutter, which is within 3 tfachim in the height to the wall, to the roof. The chol pachis migimel samach legag kegagdam. So therefore, it's like the roof itself, which is a Rishus HaYachid. So therefore, the water that's flowing in this gutter is also a Rishus HaYachid. So you can't take the water from this gutter. Tanya Nami Yachi, we see similar in a Braisa. Oimid Adam b'Rishus HaYachid. A person could stand in his Rishus HaYachid. So this is going to be the next picture here, which is picture Tov Kuf Pei. So you have 2 different properties. You have a person's house, and right next door to him, he has another house that has a 2nd floor. And he stands on his roof, and he wants to catch the water from his friend's rooftop. Okay, and what's the issue here? He doesn't have an Erev Chatzeris. So he's not allowed to carry from one Rishus to another Rishus. Okay, so the Braisa says he could stand on the roof, and he lifts up his hands, and even higher than 10 tvachim, for sure lower, but even if he wants higher than 10 tvachim, and even if he's near the wall, within 3 tvachim of the wall, and he could stand there with his keli and catch the water into his keli. However, he shouldn't lift up his keli high enough that it's going to be within 3 tfachim in the height to the roof itself. So even if he gets, so obviously if the water is flowing down into the roof and he holds his keli below than 10 tfachim and much further away than the rooftop, so it's for sure not considered that he's carrying from his person, from the other person's, from his neighbor's rishus into his rishus if he's further away. But the Braisa is saying even if he gets so close, he's higher than 10 tfachim and he's close in proximity 3 tfachim to the wall, to the roof, it's okay. As long as he's in the height, he doesn't go 3 tfachim high right near the roof itself, because then it's going to be mamish like he's taking it from that rishus into his rishus. So we see here the same thing in the Braisa, that in a place where there's an issue of Erev Chatzeris, you can't carry from that roof into your house. And Taisus points out of it, the issue is that this person wants to carry this water to drink into his house. If he's not carrying into his house, it's not a problem, because we have learned already so many times, outdoors, according to Rab Shimon for sure, outdoors from one roof to another roof is not a problem. Another Braisa says basically the same thing, just a little bit in a different language. Don't stand on your rooftop and lift up your hand higher than 10 tvachim. And if you're bringing your keli so close, within 3 tvachim in the height to the roof, so you're not allowed to draw the water there into your keli because you're bringing from one roof into your house. However, if you're not going right within 3 tvachim to the height of the roof, then you're allowed to take the water and drink it. The next thing it said in the Mishnah, minat tziner mikol makom shoyser. From the tziner, from the pipe that comes lower down, because it's not near the roof, you're allowed to drink from it either way. You don't have to. You can drink directly from this pipe. Tana and Abraisa we learned im yesh bit tziner dalad dal dalet. However, if this tziner is a very big pipe, it's so big, it's 4 by 4 tvachim wide, then asa. Then it's going to be also to drink from it directly. Why? Because then the tziner itself will have a halacha of a carmelis. even though it doesn't have the height of 10 tfachim, it comes lower down, but as long as it's 4 by 4 tfachim wide, it's going to be a karmelis. And then if you're taking from there directly, you're taking from a karmelis into a Rishus Harabim. The Mishnah was talking about a usual tzinner, which is not so wide, not 4 by 4 tfachim wide. It's like a pipe, a small pipe that the water flows down and it comes below 3 tfachim. It's a makim p'tur. It doesn't have any measurement to be any rishus for itself, and it's not within 10 tfachim, within 3 tfachim of the roof. So therefore, you're allowed to draw from there. Sagt the Mishnah, boir b'rishus harabim. If you have a boir in a rishus harabim, so this is a pit of water filled with water. V'chol yosoi, and there's the embankment of the sand around it, and it's gevaya yud tfachim, and it's tall 10 tfachim. Chaloin sha'al gabov. So if there's a window that is right above this pit of water, memalan emenu b'Shabbos, you're allowed to fill up water from this pit of water. If you take a look here and picture Tov Kuf Pei Aleph. Okay, so what's the reason why you're allowed to fill up from it? Very simple, because he's taking water from a Rishus HaYachid and he's bringing it into his Rishus HaYachid. It's going from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid. He's going through the Rishus HaRabim. The Gemara is going to address that. But the simple pshat of the Mishnah is he's going from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid, so it's not an issue. The next thing the Mishnah says, Ashpa b'Rishus HaRabim. If you have a garbage dump in the Rishus HaRabim, which is 4 by 4 tfachim wide, and it's Gevaya Yud, and it's also 10 tfachim high, and Chaloin Shal Gabav, and there's a window right above this garbage dump, you can pour out water, you can pour out into this garbage dump. So that's the next picture here, Tov Kuf Pei Beis. A person is throwing something, or throwing water, or whatever it is, from his window into the garbage dump. So he's going from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaYachid. So therefore it's not a problem. Okay, so now the Gemara explains, but how close exactly is this pit to the window, to the Rishus HaYachid that he's throwing from, or he's drawing the water from? What are we talking about? If this pit is right near the wall, to the window to his house, why does it mention there in the Mishnah that besides the pit being deep 10 tfachim, that's the Gemara's assumption right now, that when we talk about a pit, the measurement of the pit is 10 tfachim deep. Why do you have to have besides that also a chulya? The Mishnah said that there's also the embankment of the sand around it that's 10 tfachim high. Why is that negeya? If it's right near his house, like you have it in picture Tov Kuf Pei Dalid or whatever, if it is right near his house, so then he can go directly from his house into this boir. It's from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid, and there's no interruption even of a Rishus HaRabim there. What's the problem to take water from there? Rav Huna says, it's actually removed from the wall of his house 4 tfachim. And the only reason why you're allowed to carry this water, even though you're passing through a Rishus HaRabim. So how could you pass through a Rishus HaRabim? That's because you have the sand that's tall 10 tfachim. So if you don't have the sand that's tall 10 tfachim, you're carrying through a Rishus HaRabim. But if you have the sand which is 10 tfachim high, what's the klal? There's no Rishus HaRabim higher than 10 tfachim. So he's going above 10 tfachim. It's not going through a Rishus HaRabim. It's going higher than 10 tfachim. That's Rav Huna's pshat. We're speaking even about a boir that's right near the wall of his house. What's the Mishnah speaking about? The boir the pit is not 10 tfachim deep. The pit, together with the embankment of the sand around it, together could be combined to the depth of 10 tfachim. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. The next case in the Mishnah was the garbage, ashpa. Okay, so we're going to turn over the page here to the other pictures, which the Gemara will speak about. So it said in the Mishnah, you have the ashpa and the Rishus HaRabim, so you can throw from your house onto this ashpa, because the ashpa is the Rishus HaYachid. Fragt the Gemara, v'loy chashinon shemet tinotl ashpa? Are we not afraid that this garbage dump, if a person gets into the habit of throwing something out of his window into this garbage dump, are we not afraid that this garbage dump will be removed, or at least it won't be as tall to be a Rishus HaYachid, to be 10 tfachim, and then you're going to continue throwing out, and you're throwing into the Rishus HaRabim. And the Gemara brings another case where we see that we are afraid that a garbage dump is removed. There was an incident with a mavoi that did not have walls around it. But what did it have? On one side, instead of a wall, it ended by a yam. Okay, and that yam had a drop-off, or had a depth of 10 tfachim, and that yam served like a wall. And on the other side, it didn't have a wall either, but it had a wall made from garbage, as you see it in picture Tov Kuf Pei Hey. On one side, the depth of this yam is 10 tvachim. On the other side, a garbage dump. So it doesn't have a wall. Now the question is, could you consider it as if it's surrounded by all sides with a wall, and therefore you could be matter to carry there with a regular lechi and a kaira, like a regular movi? We learned this in the beginning of the Masechta, this case. Uba ma'isel ufnei Rebbe. And this question was asked to Rebbe, and he didn't want to paskin. He didn't want to paskin not that it's asa and not that it's mutter. Why? He didn't want to say that it's allowed, because we're afraid that that garbage dump, that wall of garbage is going to be taken away. Or regarding the yam, v'yala hayam sirtain. And the water, maybe there's going to be sand or whatever, different things that are sitting there. Sediments that are going to come up and they're going to take away the depth of 10 tfachim that are there. So we're afraid that it's going to change. It's not a proper wall. But Isulayama, on the other hand, he didn't want to say that it's asa either, the hakaim and mechitzis. Right now, the garbage dump and the yam are good mechitzis. So we can't really say that it's asa. So he wasn't sure whether we should be geyser here or not. But we have here a clear Mishnah. What does it say in our Mishnah with the garbage? We're not afraid that the garbage is going to be taken away. You can throw out from your window under the garbage. That's the Gemara like Kashya. Ha the Yachid, ha the Rabbim. If we're talking about a garbage dump that belongs to one person, so that we're afraid that that person will take it away. A garbage dump that belongs to a Rabbim, like over here we're speaking about in the Rishus Rabbim, that we're not afraid that anyone's going to take it away. So over here we're matter for a person to throw out into this garbage.
It's like another person, you don't need